Oh, hello, hello. Welcome back to Female Founderhood Podcast. Just the place for you to eavesdrop conversation between two founders. And on this episode, me, Rebecca Leppard, the founder of marketing agency called Upgrading Women, gonna have a conversation with this amazing founder called Lindsay Ruiz. She is a triple threat leader. To be fair, I think every woman who's a leader is a multi threat because we bleed and we breed and we build businesses, baby. So, welcome to the show, Lindsay.
I'm super excited to be here, Rebecca. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So,
And you're right. I agree with you. We should have like a multi-channel of threats and things that we do that we should be showcasing all the time.
I know. And why don't you tell the listeners what do you do? What did you used to do, and what do you do now?
Sure. So my story is a little bit in a spiral. I don't have a linear career, the
Which is
perfect
great.
story. So I'll give you my three chapters. I'm writing chapter number 4 right now as you find me.
Oh.
But chapter number 1 happened
Mhm.
in Venezuela. So I was born and raised in Venezuela in South America. I started my early career in advertising and marketing. I spent about 5 years doing a lot of creative campaigns and having a lot of fun in
Yeah.
the on the ad agency side of things.
And that was
Then yes,
Mm.
yeah, and I decided at the time that I wanted something more. So I moved to the United States. I put my advertising career behind and I started from zero. This time working in healthcare operations. So I did that for about 7 years. I had the opportunity to support an organization that was actually launching at the time. It was what we consider today a startup organization in healthcare. Wanted to introduce services to the Latinx community in North Carolina, where I live.
Mhm.
Um, and we didn't have this jargon before. We call it the Hispanic community, but basically we wanted to attract a lot of people that were Spanish speaking in receiving the services that we offered. I
Mhm.
stayed with them for about 7 years. That was the first real step into leadership roles and having business development responsibilities and having a staff that I was accountable for.
Yeah.
But I tapped into that role with very little knowledge. So I pretty much drove it with intuition.
Mhm.
And at some point, I felt like it was time to start again.
Mhm.
So that's when chapter 3 began for me, which is where I have been in the last 13 years. So I went and pursued more education like women do
Mhm.
to make sure that I knew what I was doing because we have to prove ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
But that opened a lot of doors. That opened a lot of doors for me into what I call today a triple threat career.
Mm.
So I have been working in the transformation arena for about 13 years, like I said, the
Mhm.
supporting big organizations launch large scale initiatives, deploying
Mhm.
technology, changing work environments, doing process improvement, overhauls, you name it. It's really putting myself in the middle of chaos and trying to help organize it and trying to orchestrate it so that the rest of the organization can come through the changes with a little bit less of stress and lack of
Mhm.
support, but instead an infrastructure that make it easier for them.
Mm. Wow. And who wouldn't be the best for the job if it's not a woman? Don't you think? Don't you think your womanhood give you a leg up in this case?
I do. I think your identity determines right where you end up going in your career.
Mhm.
I always say that what I do today found me. I didn't look for it. It kind of
Mhm,
gravitated towards me naturally.
mhm,
In the things that have also played a role in my life, I've been in constant change since I was born. Um, and I think it feels natural to be the organizer and to be the orchestrator and to be the person that helps articulate what the vision is that we are needing to mobilize towards,
mhm.
because it's what I do in life anyway. And so
Yeah.
it's what I learned how to do, and I could now capitalize on that to build a career around it.
And now take me back to little Lindsay back in Venezuela. What did you think? What did you want to be when you grew up? Especially growing up in a developing country
Hmm.
like I did.
Hmm.
And that would make, especially little girls in patriarchal society, don't even
Hmm.
dare to dream big. How was it like for you?
Yeah, I grew up in a very weird circumstance. My family characteristic is that of single mothers. So
Oh,
my great grandmother was a single mother, my grandmother was a single mother, my mom was a single mother. I ended up being a single mother. So I feel like from that point of view, the stigma of being a woman in a patriarchal country that is not necessarily the most friendly to women.
mm,
I had role models to go out and figure out things for myself and
mhm,
fight for my rights.
mhm,
My grandmother in particular was a trailblazing in my eyes, because I mean she was born in the 1930s.
mm,
um, I lived with her for like, the first 15 years of my life. And I saw her building businesses for herself. She used to be a nurse. She went to school to be a nurse when back in the day, women going to school pursuing a professional career was not a thing.
mhm.
Then she went and worked for big hospitals with a very male dominated,
Of course.
culture in medicine.
Mhm,
And she questioned all the doctors, and she decided, I'm gonna not follow the traditional way of doing medicine because it's not working. So she established her own protocols, even working with these big male doctors that she reported into.
mm,
And then at some point 30 years later in her career, she decided to quit, and then she started building businesses, and she went into real estate when real estate was not a thing. So she would buy houses, sell houses. I remember she had a convenience store in our garage that she built on her own. And um, she would do businesses. She would open every day, and I would sit with her in the convenience store when clients come in and out buying whatever kind of thing you can imagine.
yeah.
So I grew up around women in particular
Mm,
that took life by the horns
yeah.
and did not get afraid to follow society rules.
Mm,
Um, but I also was not the kind of kid that dreamed big. I always dreamed of freedom and independence, and I didn't
mhm.
want anything to control me. And so I always pursued that, and I still do. I haven't been totally successful at that. I'm still going at it.
Well, you are not in shackles at all, so I consider that a success so far. Being successful doesn't mean
Yep.
you're finished in your mission, but so tell me, how did you get the opportunity? Because I'm sure a lot of listeners, again, in emerging countries like our homelands, wondering like how do I even begin to start working in the first world? Um, do I
Mm.
start for a job or do I start with getting another degree? So how did you go about it when you decided to move to the US?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated process for sure, but I think the
Mm,
first thing we have to have is ambition. I've never felt that I belonged anywhere
mm,
in that gives me the freedom to move around and to not be attached to my roots.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that's the first thing that, people considering to move to another country, whether it's the first world or any
Mm-hmm.
other country. I mean, just adapting to a new culture,
Mm-hmm.
moving on your own into a place that you have no clue how you're going to go to the grocery store to begin with,
Yeah.
and with a language that's not your first language. I did not speak English when I came to the US. I
Oh,
actually
really?
self-taught English.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have to prepare for that. If I'm going to leave a new country, then I have to learn the language. Then I have to uh, do whatever it takes to establish myself and to adapt to a new culture,
Mm-hmm.
without losing my identity. And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't come here with a big opportunity. There's some people that have that
Mm-hmm.
luck to come here with a massive opportunity and all the
Mm-hmm.
doors open.
Mm-hmm.
I have to start from zero. I have
Yeah.
to I have to find where to live, and I have to go learn the language, and I have to do jobs that maybe were not the jobs I wanted. I was doing in
Yeah.
Venezuela, where I had a really good career already.
Mm.
And I think that's a training for your ego, and it's a training for humility, and it's a training for resiliency
Mm-hmm.
that needs to come with you from the get go, because it's not any easier just because you move to another country. You bring
If
everything
anything,
that
it's
you are
harder.
with you.
So
Yeah.
how did you? So
But yeah, I think you have to. Yeah. Hmm.
when was this? When you moved?
Could you
Which
ask,
year?
when was it?
Mm-hmm.
It was in 2001. I've been here 22 years now.
Wow. So back then, take us
Mhm.
back. So you arrived. Was it hard for you to get a visa to begin with? And how did you choose North Carolina? Was it the first state that you landed on? How did you? How was it? How was the journey?
Yeah. So yeah, the journey. So back then, I actually came with my then husband.
Mm,
He had an opportunity here, and that gave me the privilege in a way to come in already with a status to be here.
okay.
And that didn't make it any easier for me personally, because I could live here, but I could not work. I could not go to school. I can only just leave, dependent on my male husband.
Mm,
And so I have to go pursue a career for myself, and I have to go find a sponsor that could see my talent, see my potential, and bring my
mm,
contributions into their organization, so that I could then get my own independent status to work, to go to school, to have a normal life. So that
mm,
was my story coming in.
mhm,
I have to find those opportunities for myself, and
mhm.
in a way, it was a little easier than some people also have it, because I
Mhm.
had the foundation to be here already,
Yeah,
in a status that did not force me to leave sooner.
yeah.
But it also took me, some time to find, professionally, like, where am I going to take my career, and who's going to support me, and how do I work in this country in a way that can be sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's what took me into healthcare, and that's what took me into this whole entrepreneurial job with this company, back in the day.
Yeah. And that's wonderful. It's similar story to me because I'm married to a British person. I gave birth to three British children, but I am still not British. I'm still my nationality is still Indonesian. And a lot of people think that, oh, then it's easy for you. Not really. I still have to find my own way. I still have to apply and so on because, yeah, as you said, you are allowed to live, but not much else. And How was that experience like when you're so you basically you were landing on a new life in a new country while building your parachute, while you're trying to find what you can do, what kind of job, what kind of industry, and while learning a new language as well. Did you
Mhm.
experience racism, sexism during when you were trying still to find your way?
Yeah. You're not conscious of it. You're not, I don't know if this was your case, but you're not conscious of it until you learn, until you start connecting some of the dots and get educated around the topics. But and like I said, I found people in my journey that saw me for who I am and for what I bring to the world, and that facilitated the journey a little bit.
Mm,
But I also had to fight the the dynamics that represent, me being a Latina in the United States, someone with an accent that, you even to this day, I still have to prove my intelligence, right? Based on how I sound and how I look and the tone of my voice and my demeanor. Like, I'm always having to explain, that you get in an accent from me because I'm from another country. And if I don't explain it, I still get the question.
yeah.
So it's evident that I'm different. And I think that's the biggest challenge, that you're not, at least in my case, I've always been the different person
Mhm,
in the room.
mhm.
I had a situation one time in one of my first, jobs, now moving into the organizational transformation world,
Yeah.
where working for this organization for a long time,
Mhm,
I never knew about what the pay gap was, for example, until one of my team members, a
mhm,
white man that
mhm.
was part of our team, decided to resign. And he had one-on-ones with all of the women on the team. And when he got to talk to me, supposedly, right, he's transitioning his work to me so I can take it over. The conversation took a very unexpected turn, and this guy, to whom I'm very grateful, said, all of a sudden, Lindsay, so before we hang up, do you want to know how much money I make?
Oh,
And I say, why would I want to know that? Why would I want to know that? And he said, well, because I really need you to understand. He said, because I don't have the passion nor the education that you have for doing this work. I don't have my heart into it. I don't have the training for it, but I bet you that I make at least double what you make. And it's important for you as a woman that you go fight for what you're worth. And he did tell me. I ended up, asking, okay, I want to know.
now I want to know.
and now I want to know. And in effect, I mean, he was making at least two times what I was making in the same position, in the same role. I know he did that with the rest of my teammates, or at least a couple of them. And that gave me the tools, that gave me the knowledge to go fight for, hey, what is happening? So I had the conversations I needed to have. I eventually ended up moving to another job. But it was in those instances, it's been in those instances that I become aware
Mm,
of, when I'm treated with sexism, when I'm treated with racism, when my identity
mm,
pretty much, determines what people think I'm worth and what people think I know. And it doesn't matter how much education I get. I have a master's degree, I have a doctorate degree. I
mm,
put my tears and sweat into my education, and I still get comments, about my accent and whether or
mm,
not, and I get questioned in how I recommend solutions, and I have to fight for that. And I have to go, convince people of my
mm.
vision every single step of the way.
Yeah. How
I have more
painful.
stories that are, horror
Oh,
stories, but
I,
yeah,
I
definitely
wanna
it's been a
I have one question that I want to pin for a little bit later, but I want to also know because I'm sure knowing my audience, they will want to know how the conversation
Mhm,
went as soon as you knew
mhm,
that you actually were worth double. How did
mhm.
you then go about it to your bosses, and how did that conversation go?
It was really hard because I actually loved my bosses.
Mhm,
We were a group of women all
mhm,
together.
mhm.
I had a huge, and we still are friends to this
Yeah.
day. But at the time, I had a huge respect and admiration for the person I reported to,
Mhm,
and that was a little difficult to sit down and say, "Hey, how did you know this is happening to begin
mm,
with?" Right? Are you aware? And I don't think back in the day when that happened to me, we didn't talk about these things. We didn't talk about the gender pay gap, and we didn't talk about racism, and we didn't talk about sexism. It was all under the table. And I don't think she herself realized,
mm.
right, there was an issue. But for some reason, this little angel came through and
Yeah.
revolutionized everything. And I when I sat down with her, I basically said, um, did you know this is happening? That was the
Mhm.
first question, because it was important for me to not damage the relationship, but it was
Mhm.
also important for me to know that I was treated fairly.
Yeah.
And like I shared earlier, I come from a family of women that stand up for themselves. It's in my
Mhm.
DNA,
Yeah.
basically. And so she when I brought this up, I said, well, so and so did this, and I'm aware of that, and I kind of did this research, and this is the difference, and like, are you aware? Is
Mm.
this something that's being talked about? And I remember she was frozen, like but she was supportive. I said, I'm not expecting that I'm gonna be leveled up to where he is, but I want to make sure something's done about it, and I want to make
Mm.
sure these conversations are happening, and I
Mm.
want a resolution
Mm.
for myself
Mm.
and for the team,
Mm.
um, that could take us closer to where we're supposed to be. And
Yeah.
so I know it was difficult for her to take on that task.
Mhm.
Um, we ended up, she fought for it. I do have to admit that she went and had the conversations that needed to happen,
Mhm.
and they didn't level me up to where this person was, because they have to be fair with everybody else. But I eventually ended up leaving,
How
and
was
I
that
found the
fair for
job, and I
you?
continue to move through. But it started a conversation that was really important. I feel in retrospect, I feel really good about having been a catalyst of that
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm even more proud that this guy had the guts to challenge, the system, and to prepare me for what was to come, which, why, if it wasn't for that, I would not have been able to take on the next challenges in life.
And isn't that like this is my first time hearing like first person experience because
Hmm.
I have seen so many tweets and memes about like, hey, if you want to know how much you should charge or how much salary you should ask your white male counterpart.
Hmm.
And I thought that was an exaggeration until what I just learned from you. And what I love about it, about the story as well, is that he didn't even have to do it. He didn't even have to tell you.
No,
So
no, no.
that is a good move on his part of being a true ally. And
Yes.
it was, and I'm now trying to empathize with your boss at the time. She probably, if you experienced that, she probably experienced that too. She was probably also not being paid her worth.
Yes.
So, so I'm now I'm genuinely hoping like that was the first move, the first domino that will then move things along. Although, as a business owner, now that we know how we budget for HR, how we budget for payroll, we know that, hey, if a business can afford to pay a man that amount, the same exact business in the same exact time can pay a woman that much. How hard is it
Yeah.
in terms of mathematical logic? Because in the payroll, we should, quote unquote, supposed to be just numbers, employee number 1, 2, and 3. Why should it be different? And that blows my mind and it makes me so angry. And I'm guessing now your work and you were awarded the Women Making Impact in Enablement. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you get that award?
So in 2022, so I've been in different parts in my career. So I've taken a little detours
Yep.
into variations of what transformation is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in a chapter, in a little subchapter of my life in
Yep.
the transformation world, I did work for BlackBerry as a sales enablement executive.
Yep.
And in that role, I got to participate with different organizations,
Mm-hmm.
both, trying to implement new capabilities internally in the organization, as well as, being invited to, do little speaking engagements here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And through that participation and that exposure, this organization called Sales Enablement Pro every year goes around and picks, women that they feel are bringing contributions and making an impact in the pushing the enablement industry forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I got to get recognized. So I was one in a number of other leaders that are doing really amazing work, and I was just honored to receive that recognition from them.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
Yeah.
if you can describe it to people outside the industry, what does it mean? What does it mean in that particular term, enablement?
It means it um it means three things, I think, in my context.
Yeah.
Okay. It means you are a big orchestrator, a big catalyst to mobilize an organization towards an outcome,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're bringing the capabilities, you're creating the infrastructure, you're orchestrating the programs, and you're organizing
Mm-hmm.
basically what the organization needs in order to accomplish
Yeah.
their strategies, their goals. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that capability slash strategy
Mm-hmm.
puzzle piece to what enablement means to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the other puzzle piece, that is the ability to facilitate how people learn and grow and thrive in their roles. um, the most you hear about is sales enablement, which is where I kind of got,
Yeah.
brought into this particular recognition. But it could be the sales organization and it could be the customer organization. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a matter of making sure a group of people who are trying to figure out how to bring their organization to the next level receive the adequate resources and capabilities that they can use to learn faster, to adopt faster, and to be able to create relationships with their consumers, whether they're internal consumers or external consumers, in a more meaningful way. And then there's the obvious people factor, right? There is the creating an environment where people receive the coaching that they need, the
Mm.
support that they need, the growth opportunities that they're there to develop into. That you are in a work environment where you feel like you don't have to run from,
Yeah,
where you can create the most. I don't like to use the word positive because I'm a little bit against that toxic positivity situation that's going on out there.
I
But you
know.
want an environment where people come in and they don't feel like they have to quit, at a
Yeah.
minimum, that they can come in and do what they need to do and find their better opportunities and,
Hmm. Hmm.
get the fruits of what they're working for. And so to me, that's part of enablement too. And it's part of
Yeah.
making the management layers that contribute to creating that, able to do that. So to me, it encompasses those three puzzle pieces.
And how did that and all of your other experiences lead to you
Mhm.
being um, your own boss now? How did
I
you?
don't know that.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, I think I've been the CEO of my life. It doesn't feel any different to transition into, figuring out how to be my own boss, because
Yeah.
whether it is emigrating, whether it is, you know, getting married, getting divorced,
Yeah.
whether it is going to school, pursuing my own education, like,
Hmm.
I've always taken charge of it.
Hmm.
I haven't really, and even in my own jobs, like when I move from one opportunity to another, like, I'm very deliberate about why am I staying in this organization, and why do I need to leave this organization, and why I pick the projects that I want to be a part of. So
Hmm.
transitioning into being a full blown entrepreneur,
Yeah.
founder, and, all
Yeah.
these things, it just feels like another thing I have to do if I want to continue to own my life and my freedom, and my deliberate attempts to find something better, to find something bigger for me.
Mm. I totally hear you because being a lot of people have misconception about, oh, I want to be my own boss. Well, you have to
Hmm.
be able to be someone else's boss first, and you have to be
Hmm.
able to see and judge and how you are being managed when you as a junior or as an employee, how you play your part in an ecosystem
Yeah.
before you actually
Yes.
are building the ecosystem yourself. And what
Yes.
would your advice be for,
Yeah.
and I believe entrepreneurial um, is in someone's DNA. You cannot purely just learn it. You have to at least have some DNA, almost like a singer. At least you can sing the basic tune. So for those, especially the younger generation, and especially that
Hmm.
in this day and age, being an entrepreneur is something that is trendy, I hate to say. Whereas
Hmm.
in our generation, it was to work in a big company. That was the trend, right? That was
Yes.
that was the biggest flex. These days, people are so proud to call themselves a startup founder, even though being an
Yes.
entrepreneur has always been, even your grandmother was a startup founder, but it wasn't
Yeah.
called at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that she would post. These days we post it on Instagram, but at the time in 1930s, your grandmother didn't take a picture of herself and put it in the newspaper saying, look at me, I own my own convenience store. So what would your advice
Hmm.
to those who are so passionate and at the same time, in my opinion, impatient in starting their entrepreneurial journey?
Okay. So I have a few things to break. I think we need to unpack this.
Yeah.
First, I'm big in contextualizing. Like we
Yeah.
need to put things within context to kind of make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
The first piece for me would be there is a difference between having an entrepreneurial spirit
Mm-hmm.
and being the owner of a business, which is what
Mm-hmm.
we typically recognize as I'm a
Yeah.
founder and entrepreneur and I
Yeah.
do all these things, right? To me, the role of being the owner and the founder is not necessarily um, the same as having an entrepreneurial identity and spirit and going and being able to be driven,
Mm-hmm.
right, to make things happen, because the role to me is attached to your ability to raise capital, your ability to build the products, to create them, to find the clients. Like, to me, that's a different idea, which is what is mainstream basically.
Mm-hmm.
But the gene that you bring with you makes you an entrepreneur no matter where you are. If you are somebody who, has been able to turn around your own childhood trauma and challenges and turn that into fuel for, what you want to go after life and what is your cause and what is your purpose in this
Mm-hmm.
world. I think that, especially coming from a minority underprivileged group, turning what, like we just talked about, right? There are a lot of challenges that you go through, even being employed in an organization that shapes you up as a leader and gives you. Simon Sinek has this
Yeah.
amazing quote that I'm a fan of. He says, you have to be the leader you wish you had.
Yes.
And I think an entrepreneur needs to turn itself into the leader you wish you had, because it's a capability for when you go out into the role of the entrepreneur and have your own business, because you're going to be leading people, you're still going to be impacting people, you're still going to be impacting customers, you're still going to be impacting society, and it's all going to come from you and what you turn to be, in your DNA, based on how you turn your hardships and your disadvantages into who you are and how you want to lead people. I think that a lot of, there's actually right now a trove of people leaving corporate,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of reasons why. People are not necessarily, happy with
Yeah.
how corporate organizations are creating spaces for people to come in and work every day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of it has also to do with an understanding of yourself and whether or not the corporate world provides you with what you need, in order to thrive. Some people bring in a lot of, especially, there's a lot of neurodivergence that's been recognized in individuals, people with dyslexia, people with ADHD, people with ADD, all kinds of different learning, differences that make you unique, that you have to be able to understand in order to find how you thrive in the world. And sometimes going through the corporate world, going through the I'm going to be the employee first, gives you the opportunities to learn those nuances about yourself and what works for you and what doesn't, so that you can also build that into your capabilities to run a business and to do it in a way that works for you, at the speed that works for you, you know organizing your ability to run the business, in the less overwhelming way for you. But there is a gift in having gone through it as an employee, as somebody who, is a manager, or somebody that's following the traditional steady path first. If you're taking that as an opportunity to learn about yourself, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what makes you a better leader, the things you don't want to repeat, the things you don't, the things you want to disrupt in how businesses are being, being built to do in the traditional way, and take from there to then create the role for yourself. to bring something into the world, that's a little different. I think another expectation that's misleading is this idea that you have to do something absolutely original and you have to change the world, and unless you have the winning idea, you should not do anything, right?
Mhm.
That's not true. I think for me, I feel like you are an instrument of change
Yeah.
exactly where you are.
Mhm.
Um, because the complexity of who you are and what you're willing to learn and what you're willing to do differently for yourself will likely open
Mhm.
the door for other people to do things differently too.
Yes.
And that's for me the best gift somebody in the role of ownership of a business can offer to the world and to the
Yeah.
people that now become a part of that new dream that you may have.
Yes, I totally agree with you because, well, A, there's nothing new or original. Everything is an iteration, or it can be a disruption,
Mm,
but it has
mm,
an original idea from somewhere. Even that original idea stemmed from something else. And
mm,
also, you don't need to, again, like, be a rocket science scientist literally to make a difference. You can open a convenience shop, you can open a salon, you can do hair and makeup, you can have a cupcake business, something that everybody
mhm.
needs. I need a cupcake right now. But if that means you're providing for your family, you are being the joy of your community, and that you're also employing other people, you're opening opportunities for others, that is your change.
Mm,
That is your disruption. And it
mm,
doesn't, again, you don't have to be the next Facebook, you don't have to be the next Tesla to be able to
mhm.
call yourself a successful entrepreneur. Um, and
Yeah,
with that, I want to go back to my question that I was pinning. So,
yeah.
and this is purely selfish as well, because I didn't identify a lot with you that I came from a different country. I had to build my own life, and that we're mothers. I did have a few years ago, no, not a few. I think it's already 10 years now. I remember in 2013, I said to myself, you know what? I think I have to pursue a master's degree and then a doctorate
Mm,
degree. Otherwise, people won't respect me for the
mhm,
skills and the talent that I already have now. So until I had that certificate, that PhD, that whatever,
mm,
that society agree that it is okay, Rebecca, you're officially smart now. um, that is one thing. And secondly, I also thought, oh my God, I think in order to be understood and respected, talking back about accent, that I cannot have a foreign accent because otherwise people would
yeah,
doubt the content of my speech, of my
mm,
message. So,
yes,
because in my own insecurity, and I am a confident person, in my own insecurity, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm a woman, I'm short, I don't have like a, like a big stature. And at the time, I was still so young. And in a lot of contexts, youth can be a disadvantage. And I didn't have any, higher degree, and I don't sound, super smart. Like maybe if I had a British accent, it would be completely different. So all of these insecurities, I
mm,
was wondering, did you have the same thing? Um, and
mhm,
after you had your master's and then your doctorate degree, and then you have your um, you can speak English fluently, obviously, but then you have your accent still, which I think is cute,
Mhm.
but for sure, I can empathize that that can be a hindrance. So share with me a lot of that type of complexity and nuances that you had throughout your American journey.
So, in terms of my education, I do agree with you. My experience is similar in
Mm,
that I always felt like I always needed to accumulate
mm,
more and more official,
yeah. Doc-
physical, you know, physical proof that
yeah.
I am a smart woman.
Yeah.
Um, and I took on a journey to collect those.
Mm,
However, I always I have gone into my education journey conscious that I want to study things that I'm passionate about. I also went into my education journey paying for it on my own. I never had anybody pay for my education. I feel like that's my personal investment. And so I never, even though I knew educating myself and having the proof to say, I've been able to accumulate this knowledge, I always saw it as an investment in myself. I'm a very curious person, very inquisitive. I love to have intellectual conversations. I don't do a lot of small talking. I don't do a lot
yeah.
of, I'm not a social butterfly. So for me, school and learning and gathering knowledge is a massive part of my life that I value. Um, and that was the driver, but underneath that there was the need to prove, like, if I want to move in my career in this country
Mm,
based on who I'm competing with, I need to stand out somehow,
yeah.
and I need to stand out for the right reasons,
Mm,
because I was standing out for the reasons that hinder,
yes.
and that I needed to change that to standing out for the reasons that position me well
Mm,
for the job.
yeah.
If I wanted to continue to build, my career in the direction that I have. I always been wanting to have leadership roles. I am not the kind of person that sits in the back seat. I'm not the kind of
Mhm,
person that likes to be put in a box and locked in a box and not be able to breathe and come up with. I need to be able to have latitude. And in order to have latitude, you have to move your career towards more leadership in order to be able to have some level of decision making,
mhm,
and to be able to be a good decision maker and have sound judgment. You have to have some level of intellectual capabilities that can help you discern
mhm,
what is it that you're deciding on. And so to me, all of that kind of came together with the added, benefit, if you will, that I can now say for fact, these are the things I have accomplished, academically. And it's 5% of the proof of all the things I can do. Because I still get questioned. It's funny. It's really funny. I was actually talking to a few of my classmates the other day for my
mm,
doctorate program, because they're going out into the workforce. And they're like, Lindsay, I feel like having a doctorate is a hinder. People look at me like I'm from another planet. And um, it's actually costing me more to find jobs because of my education. And I thought it was going to be the opposite. I thought,
mhm.
companies will be proud to have people. And so there's also a stigma. There's always a stigma. There's always a question
Okay.
mark as to why a person, and especially a woman,
Mm,
if you don't have a degree, it's because you don't have a degree. But if you had a degree, that's also questionable, because who are you to have a degree? If you are proud of it and you say, I've accomplished these things, I put all this time, look, I work for it, like, now I'm ready, then you're too arrogant and too out there, and you should not be calling yourself a doctor, which I don't. But if you don't say it, and if you don't
is
do
it
it, then you're still
really?
being judged by the cover of the book. So you
So
never win.
I know. And that was going to be my next question. Why don't you put doctor in front of your name, because I would have done it
Yeah.
just to almost shut
Mhm.
people up with their misjudgment of me, of their you know, underestimating me. What has your
Mhm.
have you thought about this before?
Yeah, I have. I don't, for me, that's a good question. I don't use it because it doesn't define me. You
Mm,
know, I don't want people to define me and to know me because I have two letters in front of my name.
right.
I want people to define me and know me and get closer to me because of who I am. And
Mm,
then if the, I think that there are times for those conversations. There's
yeah.
times where those are tools basically in my
Mm,
mind, right?
mm,
So the same as, a job title. You can have job title today and not have it tomorrow.
yeah.
And you still need to be who you are and you still need to show up and people still need to know you the same whether you have the title or you don't have the title.
Yeah.
So I mean, I use it very, very scarcely in very particular situations, especially when there are rooms full of men and I'm the only woman. I bring it up because it creates a disruption because
Yeah.
it's like cognitive dissonance for them.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And I like that. I like to break the pattern and the dynamic, and I feel like it's a way for me to introduce myself in a different way
Yes.
when there's a room full of powerful people.
Hmm.
But I don't it's not who I am and it's not what defines me as an individual, as a human being, as a woman. And so I don't use it regularly.
Hmm.
And I've been in situations where that's been stigmatized. And instead of creating the effect of, oh my gosh, there's this person that has put a lot of time and effort trying to build herself into a professional that has integrity,
Hmm.
it turns against me, with almost jealousy in a way
Yeah.
that you're bringing those things to the forefront. And so I don't,
Can't
I
win.
try to avoid those dynamics. I try to avoid the dynamics. And again, it doesn't define me. I don't care if people call me a Dr. Lindsay or mispronounce my name. I just want people to know me and to remember
Mm,
me for who I am.
yeah. Well, that is a fair point, and I like the fact that you use it as a surprise. Like, aha! Did you not know I actually have a doctorate degree, and now you cannot underestimate me anymore. You cannot mistaken me as just the secretary, quote unquote. And
There's an interesting shift that
yeah,
happens, which I'm
yeah.
very aware of.
Can you
Mhm.
see it? Can you see in their face like it's a visceral
Yeah.
reaction, right?
There's a surprise. I don't know if it's visceral, but there's definitely a surprise in the room
Yeah,
when because I come in and I get treated in a way that it's evident they underestimate,
yeah.
you know, what I bring.
Mhm.
And it's not just because of the doctor. It's like everything that I've accumulated, my experience, my point of view, I put a lot of effort in creating mental models for myself about situations and have a strong point of view that's coming from an informed place. And
Mhm.
so all of that combined with the what people attribute to success, which is a title or a diploma or whatever, creates disruption in the room when people are assuming things about who you are and what you do and what you know, and then you surprise them with, well, I'm not as dumb as you think you are. And I'm not as much of an underdog as you consider me to be, but okay. But I like it that way. I like it to be a surprise element. I like it to be a shift
Yeah.
in how people perceive me and not lead with that.
Yes. No, I agree. Leading with that is actually, it can be perceived as insecurity. Like, why do you even have to lead with that? But I
Mhm.
want to know what has
Exactly.
been what has been the worst, or the, you know, they cannot be more wrong. Have you been mistaken as someone else in the position? Have you been mistaken as a note taker, whereas
As the
you're actually
coffee, as the
CFO?
coffee. Yep.
Pardon?
I've been asked to bring coffee in the room. Yeah.
What was your reaction?
I've been
What?
asked. I've been no, I didn't. I didn't say anything. I just said no, that's not for me to do. I didn't
Ah,
give an explanation. I didn't make it a big deal, but I
that's
did
really,
not do it. But yeah,
that's
I've been asked to bring coffee in the room. I've been asked to take notes.
mm,
Um, the one, I mean, that the one opportunity where I did take it personal, because it was beyond like offensive. I feel like
mm,
it was with my, one of my bosses in a different organization that um had it. I mean, he took it on me. In every single meeting he would ask me to make the notes. So the first time I was like, okay, this must be right. The second time, so I would go and take the notes and send the email and say, here are my notes. And then the fourth time he did it, I really had to sit down and say, I'm not your note taker. I'm a
mm,
VP, just
mm,
like the rest of your team.
mhm.
And if you need notes, you can take them. You have a notebook, you have a pen, take your own freaking notes. I'm not here for that. And so I did do that
I
unapologetically.
I love that, and
Take your
I
freaking notes. Take your notes. Why can
yeah,
you take your notes? Why do I have to take
we
your notes?
exactly, we equally graduate elementary school, so uh,
You're my higher rank than I am. You should be absolutely capable to take your own notes. How do you
ex-
get there?
exactly. I mean, the audacity and the arrogance,
The
and yeah,
audacity.
and I love that you don't um just suffer fools. I love that you say no, and I hope any women listening out there, this is your permission slip to also say no to
Totally.
all of the ridiculous unpaid labor, non-promotional task that people ask you to do. So, to close this conversation, I would like
Mm-hmm.
you, Lindsay, Dr. Lindsay Ruiz, to complete this when I'm king.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. When I'm king, I would like for the paid opportunities to be democratized so we don't have to hustle and compete for them. I feel like we waste a huge amount of time in life going to bed with the concern as to
Mm,
whether or not we're enough and are we going to make it
mhm,
and am I going to have my shot? You know, I know that I personally struggle with that. I'm always thinking, you know, when is it going to be my turn?
mm,
And I don't think we need to be playing taking turns.
yep.
If we had the opportunity, if we had somehow the way to democratize how everybody has a shot to get to the finish line and pursue what they dream to pursue
Yeah.
without having to compromise each other in the journey, without
Yes.
having to up one another in the journey,
Mhm.
because it's we live in a collective world. We depend on each other, whether in here's the independent woman saying that, but we depend on each other to take the world forward. And this amount of hustling and competition and narcissistic way of looking at life is detrimental to what we can actually do if we didn't have to deal with that.
Yes, absolutely. And as I always say whenever I get the opportunity, there's enough food for everyone. There's enough land for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Why should we still
Yeah.
have too many people hungry, too many families homeless? And I would absolutely vote for you to be king, Lindsay. And with that,
I think things are like master patriarchal,
I
but
know.
they just have the right to do it. So I like that. I would like to taste that.
Yes, exactly. And here's the thing, every time people ask me, Rebecca, why not queen? Okay, well, king size bed is bigger. So I want women to be king. And two,
Yeah.
women can be king too. Why not?
Yes. Totally. Totally.
So, on that note, I would like to then for us to reflect and observe. And I would love to thank you, Lindsay, for coming onto the podcast. And I wish you and your family all the love and the joy in the world. And for everybody who's listening, if you have other female founders who you would like for me to interview, why don't you send me an email? It's Rebecca@upgradingwomen.com. Until then, see you in the next episode. Bye, Lindsay.
Thank you.